We are live. Yeah, live.
We'll be right here.
Okay. I don't know if you've been watching us or not, but we have a proposal along with using 104 million to find out property taxes, to take a portion of that and add it to renters rebate. And we haven't had a chance to hear anything about renters rebate, how it works, what the uptake is. I thought we had put in, well, and maybe it's just the HUD area rental rate that is the inflationary index in there. But give you a chance to tell us anything you think might be helpful. We are divided.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
That is our normal state.
Coalescing.
Jake Feldman, Tax Department. I heard bits and then I was Teams chatting with people. So I apologize if what I'm saying is stuff you already know. And I'm also apologizing for being a bit scattered. But I'll give it a shot. So for a while, there was a renter rebate, which kind of mirrored the circuit breaker part of property tax credits. The income limit was 47,000, and you had to get a certificate from your landlord, and you got a rebate for the difference between like your kind of like imputed property taxes compared to your income. So, and you also had to do a lot of paperwork, including if you had roommates, you'd ask them for their social security.
One of them
numbers.
had $100 million trust fund and the rest of you were paupers, and every year there was a new scenario that came in that the system didn't work for.
Right.
And if I could just, Jake, correct me, but what you're describing here, when it worked that way, it came out of the ed fund. Is that, it was paid for out of the ed fund, or am I getting that wrong?
It is how things used to be. It was partly paid out of the ed fund and partly paid out of the general.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Yeah, right. And then there was a couple of studies on ways to improve it, around 2017-ish. The tax department picked up on those studies and proposed a pretty major reform. The name change to renter credit. And then in 2021, things got quite a bit different. They got quite a bit easier for renters. They got a little bit harder for the tax department. We made it so that renters didn't have to get any certificate from their landlord. They could just file, and we match things kind of on the back end. And we also changed the way the credit is calculated to be tied to HUD's measures of fair market rent, depending on where you live. Also based on your family size. So if you're in a family of 3, you get a credit based on 3-bedroom apartment. Not that you necessarily are living in that big of an apartment, but that's how the credit is calculated. And as the chair mentioned, the entire program is kind of indexed with HUD's what they're observing for changes in income and changes in rent. And both of those things go up each year. So the credit, so the program costs a little bit more each year, as you can kind of expect.
Okay, so the income and the rent have been an inflationary factor.
Yeah. And I should say before the credit started, the renter rebate was declining pretty rapidly. So when we started the credit in 2021, it stopped that decline. And then it started creeping up. And 2 years ago, the administration proposed bumping out the income limits. So it's a bit technical, but instead of what HUD calls the very low income, we moved it more towards low income. So we just made it so like kind of more low, moderate income people could get it. And that made the program cost even more. Right now, it's costing around 11 million a year. And the last year renter rebate costed costed is not a word, it cost 7. So it's going up. And the number of people getting it is going up. It had gone down to something like 9,000 and now it's more like 16,000. So the cost and the people getting it is going up. It's indexed to inflation as something like this should be. Do I have anything else relevant to say? I think that's probably it. And I'll just say one quick thing, is that, it greatly decreased the amount of work that renters need to do and landlords too, but it increased the work that the tax department needs to do. We are now 5 years into it and, we're finding that we need to kind of check back on some of our processes to make sure everything is like above board. Meaning because the landlord doesn't have to give the renter a certificate anymore. There's a possibility for fraud, and so we need to build in logic to prevent that. So this summer we're gonna see what we can do in that regard. So that is brief history of renter credit.
Okay, Senator Hardy.
The reason this came up is because I heard from constituents who recently moved to Vermont who said that their rent is significantly higher than their previous state and that their renter credit is significantly lower. So we have a relatively speaking more modest renter credit than at least other states. And so that led me to sort of digging into this with JFO. And what you didn't mention is that there's a cap on what people can get in terms of the credit. It's
2,500.
2,500 or 10% of the area medium average income rent.
Right.
So that makes it so that there's a cap that people can get on it. So trying to increase that cap so as to be a more generous credit. I hear you that the income level went from 50% of the area median income to 65%. Still, HUD considers low income 80%, not, so it's not even yet up to the what's considered to be low income. So it's still for, compressed number of income, amount of income, more compressed than the property tax credit income levels. And also there's a cap on what you can get. So the proposal that we've been batting around would tweak all three of those things, the percentage, the cap, and the income level. But now where we're at right now, apparently with the amount of money that some people are willing to spend would just do the percentage and the cap. Because if we change the percentage, then it will bump some, namely Chittenden County rents probably out of the running because they'll be above the cap. And so it wouldn't benefit people in that county because the rents are the highest there, especially for families.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of levers that one could pull to expand the program. I didn't know that how it compared to other states. That's an interesting observation on the income limits. So 47,000 is kind of the static circuit breaker limit, and it has been that way for a very long time. I'm not sure. On renter credit, the income limits move with time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the cutoffs, actually a lot of them are beyond 47,000. So it kind of depends on your family size.
Right. Well, it's a percentage of the area median income.
Oh yeah, so that's
that's the renter credit.
Credit.
Yeah.
And then the income eligibility is actually it goes like to 50 or 60, or it actually depends where you live and how big your family is.
What's the very there's extremely low, very low, and low. And our renter, right where it's set right now, 65% is in between very low and low. So it doesn't even go up to low income, which is 80%.
Sure, yes, I was just comparing it to the 47,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything you said is accurate, about the way it works. And yeah, there are various levers you could pull if you want to expand the program. It's paid out of the general fund. So I am sorry, I'm not totally up to speed on the proposal, but this would continue to pay it out of the general fund, or
It would slice off a little bit of the 104 million that's being proposed for property tax buy down. And allow renters to get some of that, since the property tax buy down is solely for property owners. Obviously, renters don't benefit from it. So
is it a 1-year expansion or?
it could be, I mean, that's the way it is, you know, the property tax buy down would be a 1-year buy down. And so you could do the renter credit as a 1-year expansion.
So a couple notes on that. If it's 1 year, then you have a situation where people get much more in 1 year, and then there's kind of like a whiplash
That happens with property taxes too, and it's one of the arguments, Jake, as you know, about not buying down property taxes.
We settled that argument.
Oh, sorry, settled argument. Okay, so if it's ongoing though, if it's ongoing expansion, then you would need, I don't know the number in FY 28 to keep it going. So that would be a future cost. And then the other thing that I think maybe Senator Memphis was just saying is, like, if you buy down property taxes, and I think the committee is thinking on homestead and non-homestead uniformly, then the renters benefit because they are paying the non-homestead tax indirectly through their rent.
Do you think that landlords are gonna decrease their rent because of that?
It will just go off less.
I think there's probably a lag. I know that rents were going up a lot over the last 5 years, and it corresponds to property tax increases. I think what happens is probably, I'm not a landlord myself, but they probably get the bill for their properties in July, August, and then they start thinking about, what do I need to charge? Whenever leases are up or whenever they can adjust them. So mechanically, that's probably what happens. I think property tax is definitely reflected in that.
I think it's one of the factors, but there's not a direct correlation in terms of the benefit of us buying down property tax rates and rents going down the same, buying down rental rates.
Yeah, but rate, you're increasing credit.
Right, but having a direct correlation with the benefit for renters as we have for the benefit for property owners.
Do we have any other questions for Jeff? Thank you. Thank you.
Just one question,
Okay.
if I can, in terms of other states, are you aware of any state taxation elsewhere that more equitably places rent or rental deduction from a tax perspective on the landlord and the tenant separately? Recalculation, in other words, or apportionment.
A state that more equitably places the rental. Can you say it again? Sorry.
And do any states separate out, for tax purposes, income from rental to a landlord and property taxes paid by the landlord versus property taxes paid for the tenant on that space? It's another way of putting it.
Are you saying that
If
the tenant gets a tax bill?
Mhm.
Oh,
I'm just asking the question, because theoretically, that's what we're doing in some ways. We're saying, in fact, that we're going to refund taxation from property taxes to a tenant, at least in one of the provisions we talked about.
That's not what we're saying.
That's not.
No.
Well, what's the benefit then?
That's what essentially, that's the argument has always been that you pay a portion of the property tax in building in your rent. It's reflected in the.
I thought you
And
meant
That's what you're effectively trying to do. And my question is, does anybody at the state level, instead of doing it at hypothetically or theoretically, just do they actually do it? I don't know if there's any such case. There probably isn't, but it's a question worth asking. Because that's what you're trying to do.
No, I'm trying to, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is say, if we're going to use $100 million of general fund to buy down property tax rates,
Mhm.
then we need to, then I think we should have renters benefit as well.
And what you're saying is buying down the tax rates, you're taking a portion of the taxes that have been collected, property taxes for a rental property, giving it back to the landlord, right? That's what, when you buy down a tax rate, that's what you do.
We're actually taking general fund and buying down.
Yeah, it's general fund that's going.
But then we're
whatever.
paying-
But the net effect is you're buying it down on the basis of how much property taxes to pay, right?
No, what we're doing is we're buying it down based on a overall percentage across the state of what the property tax
Well,
rate
isn't
is.
that effectively the same thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure I
Okay, I
understand.
think
I'm
we're
not sure I'm
getting into
understanding
a
your.
philosophical
And what I'm asking is-
argument. I would like to release Jake.
Yeah, what I'm really asking, Jay, is there another way? We'll forget the breakdown. There's another way that any other states collect property taxes other than the way we're doing it, based on the value of the property per se. And rather than, or looking at the value of how the property is used, or the value of the particular components within the property that generate income.
I can't think of any offhand, but I would need to kind of go back and think about it more. And then get back to
Yeah,
you.
I think Jake is here. On the spur of the moment without any chance to prepare, so. Send
I
it back.
just, my big takeaway from what Jake has said, and I think this is what Senator Matzos was saying earlier, is that every dollar we put into property tax rate reduction, some of that helps renters.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in some cases, maybe all of it is, I mean, there's different landlords and there's different tenants and,
If we reduce the cost of ownership of that building, some of that gets down to the renter.
okay. Committee, I'm not thinking we're changing many minds here. Have we been able to do any numbers that you have comfort in?
Yeah,
Okay,
can I read it first? Julie Richter, JSO. I heard the request from the committee to solve for a 3.8% average bill change. And to estimate how much would that give you that you could put towards the renter credit? And the answer to that is 4 million. So if you were to a little over 4 million, but let's say 4 million. So if you were to have an estimated average uniform bill increase of 3.8%, then you would only need a one-time general fund transfer of 100.9 million rather than 104.9. And that would give you a $4 million box for Pat's analysis.
okay, Pat, you know,
Yeah, I guess, so Pat Turgeon, Joint Fiscal Office. So if you were to increase the percent from 10 to 12.5% instead of the 15, you could still have the cap at 3250, but not expand income eligibility. Would get roughly around 3.75 million is my sort of quick.
with that. Or,
I'm willing to agree to it, to do something for affordability, since affordability is the big buzzword this year.
I mean, my rough math is if you do 3.75 million. And the program currently is 11.5 million. It's a 33% increase. That's, well, yeah, I mean, but I mean, it's a pretty generous increase.
okay.
Yeah. It's more than inflation last.
over time.
Lower income individuals that rent.
Okay,
So it is incentivized, doesn't go to.
I think we've probably crunched all the numbers. Crunch. We're going to need a draft. I think this is probably where we're going.
Look,
Hello. You the draft. You're in the middle of the crunchers.
John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel. So am I understanding there's appetite to do this nearly pull down, buy down plus S220 with what threshold? 112?
That's past the Senate.
So, okay. So that, this renter credit that achieves a 3.75 million, which is, I think, increasing the credit to 12.5% of fair market rent. And then the cap would be 3250, but leaving the same current very low income limit. Is the proposal a 1-year proposal or a ongoing program? So I'll have to do all these things.
I think it needs to be a 1-year proposal since we're spending surplus money from last year, which we don't have this year and we probably want. So.
Okay. So I think I know what I'm doing, if that is the ask.
Can I ask John a question? So in the, I don't see it in the draft, but in current law, my understanding is that the percentage is 65%,
That's correct.
which is between very low and low.
Yeah, so to explain the way this works, and Pat actually hinted at this earlier, the way that the law works, very low income limit in Title 32 is defined to be HUD very low income multiplied by 1.3. So, and that was updated in, I think, Act 144 a few years ago. So that was the way that it was addressed at that time, was to produce a state specific kind of very low income at 65%.
Okay.
And so what you see in the draft currently in the proposal was increasing to that 80%.
Mhm.
So that's why you saw the one multiplied by 1.6. I would just remove that whole section because you would be leaving at 65% that level.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Thanks.
I agree with everything you said. I just sent a thing about dates and the S220 link. Okay.
And I can just say right now, but I think it's resolved. In S220 is passed the Senate. I had drafted the effective dates, and I think this is just something where I need to align with what the practice is. Thinking that you set the rates based on what is the law in effect on the day that you make the determination, rather than based on what you know the law will be on the day at which the taxes, the fiscal year to which they apply. So the effective date as passed the Senate did not reflect that convention. So it is now updated to be the S220 measures go effective July 1, 2027, and within they apply to FY28, which begins July 1, 2027. So effective July 1, 2027, I think that aligns with the convention that JFO and tax have used all this time. So I think that is the.
Okay. I think we should be ready for a motion, but without an amendment.
So I was going to propose that once we agreed what it is, I leave this room and make sure that it looks good and send it to editing. So
It's send it to.
editing, so we can have it edited. It won't take very long.
Okay.
Do you want to wait, Madam Chair, or do you want a motion now to move this forward with what he just described?
If you wait for the draft.
I think it was, there's been so many moving parts. I think people might want to see the draft.
I'm going for a walk. It's nice out.
Go for a walk. It's nice out. Be back in like 15 minutes.
Maybe for like 20.
20.
4 o'clock.